All right, welcome to The Explainer. You know, life can change in just a split second. One minute, everything's totally normal, and the next, you're thrown into the chaos of an accident. It's something none of us ever want to think about. But what if it does happen to you? Let's get into it.
So, there you are. You're hurt, you're confused, and now what? That's the one huge, overwhelming question that just hangs in the air. Suddenly, the road ahead, it's completely foggy. So, Section 1, after the accident. And chaos is really the perfect word for it, because what follows an accident is just this storm. And it's so much more than just the physical pain, right? It's everything else that gets dragged into the mess.
And this really shows you that whole domino effect. I mean, it's almost never just about the injury itself. You're trying to heal, just focus on getting better. But at the same time, you're seeing those medical bills stack up, higher and higher. You can't go back to work, so your income just stops. But guess what doesn't stop? The mortgage, the car payment, the grocery bills. It's this pile-on of stress, physical, financial, and emotional, that can honestly feel like you're drowning.
All right, Section 2. So, just when you feel like you might be able to start putting things back together, you run into this unexpected hurdle, the insurance company. Now, you'd think they'd be on your side, right? That they're there to help. But you're about to find out their goals can be, well, let's just say they're very different from yours. And this quote right here just cuts straight to the chase. Don't be surprised if the insurance companies try to place the blame on you. Wow. I mean, think about that. Their main goal a lot of the time is to pay out as little as possible. And the easiest way to do that? Point the finger right back at you, saying you were at least partly to blame. So now, on top of everything else, you're not just fighting to get better, you're having to fight to prove you weren't the bad guy. Okay, Section 3. This is the part of the story where a hero steps in. Because when you are feeling completely overwhelmed and totally outmatched, you need somebody to get in the ring and fight for you. You need a tireless advocate. So, what exactly is a personal injury lawyer? Well, think of them as way more than just a legal expert in a suit. They are your champion, your advocate. Their whole job, their entire mission is to fight for the compensation you need to put your life back together after someone else's carelessness completely wrecked it. And these advocates, they handle a huge range of cases. I mean, you've got the ones we all think of, like car and truck accidents. But then there's stuff like premises liability. That's the legal term for, slipping and falling on someone else's property because they weren't careful. Or what about medical malpractice? Or the tragedy of a wrongful death case? Even things like defective products or dog bites. The key thing here is that every single one of these situations is different, and a real advocate knows exactly how to handle the specifics of each one. So let's pull back the curtain a bit. Section 4, the advocate's plan of action. How do they actually do it? How do they take that absolute mess and that chaos you're in and turn it into a clear, solid strategy? Well, here's how they fight for you. First, they jump in and do the digging. They investigate everything, collecting all the evidence. Then, they pinpoint who's at fault and legally establish that liability. And all that complicated legal stuff, the phone calls, the paperwork, the back and forth, they handle all of it. The main goal is always to negotiate a fair settlement, so you don't have to go through a trial. But, and this is a big but, if the other side doesn't want to play fair, they are absolutely ready to take your case to court. They handle the fight so you can focus on what's truly important, just getting better. And this brings us to Section 5, what justice looks like. Because at the end of the day, the results of having a real advocate, man, they can be absolutely life-changing. We are talking about outcomes that literally help restore lives. Just look at this. $2 million. That was the result for someone injured in a collision with a commercial truck. Now, that number, that's not just a number. That's security. That's money for medical care, for the future, for a lost career. But let's get real. What does it actually feel like for the person who went through it? Well, it feels like this. Carlos said, "I had no clue what to do. It was the best thing I've done." He called his lawyer a wonderful human being. See?
For him, it wasn't just about the check. It was about having a guide when he was completely lost. That feeling of having someone truly in your corner, you can't put a price on that. Or take a look at this one, $1.8 million in a wrongful death case. I mean, these are the hardest cases imaginable. And look, we all know that no amount of money can ever bring back someone you love. But what it can do is provide some stability for a family that's been shattered and is now facing a future they never planned for.
And listen to what Mallory said. Her case was difficult, but she said the team didn't just work endlessly for the best outcome, they also made the whole process feel stress-free and smooth. And that right there is huge. Giving someone peace of mind during the absolute worst time of their life, that is what a true advocate does.
Which brings us to our last section, the advocate's promise. Because all of this, it's not just about legal tactics. It comes from a core belief system, a philosophy of care. It's about how you treat people when they are at their most vulnerable. And that philosophy really boils down to this single quote. We treat each of our clients with respect, dignity, and compassion. When you walk into our doors, you are family. Think about that. It's a promise. A promise that you'll be treated like a human being with compassion, which is probably the exact opposite of how you feel you're being treated by everyone else. But let's talk about the big question. How can you possibly afford this, especially when you're already struggling with bills and no income? That's where something called the contingency fee promise comes in. It's a game changer. Look, your upfront cost is zero. Nothing. The law firm pays for everything needed to build your case. You only pay them a fee if and only if they win for you. If they don't win, you don't pay. It's that simple. It means they're literally invested in your success. Their goals and your goals are perfectly aligned. So at the end of the day, nobody ever plans on having an accident. Nobody asks for their world to be flipped upside down. But it makes you think, doesn't it? It all comes down to one final, really important question. If the worst-case scenario happens to you, who's going to be in your corner fighting for you?